Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiv Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Diriye Nashtaprayeshu Vadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtiki. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 12, Chapter 10, Lord Shiva and Uma glorify Markandeya Rishi. Text 28 onwards. So we saw how Lord Shiva and Mother Parvati glorified Lord Markandeya Rishi. Now Markandeya Rishi is speaking back. He is praying to Lord Shiva. Shri Markandeya Vacha Aho Ishvara Lileyam Durvibhavya Sharirinam Yannamanti Shityatni Stuvanti Jagadishvaraha. Shri Markandeya said, it is indeed most difficult for embodied souls to understand the pastimes of the universal controllers. For such lords bow down to and offer praise to the very living beings they rule. In the material world, conditioned souls strive to lord it over one another. Therefore, they cannot understand the pastimes of the actual lords of the universe. Such bona fide lords have a wonderfully magnanimous mentality and thus sometimes bow down to the most qualified and saintly among their own subjects. This is the level of humility, actually. Lord Shiva and even Krishna also shows for his devotees, for his associates. Dharvam grayitum praya pravaktarascha dehinam acharanti anumodante kriyamanam stuvanti cha. Generally, it is to induce embodied souls to accept religious principles that the authorized teachers of religion exhibit ideal behavior while encouraging and praising the proper behavior of others. Netavata bhagavata somaya maya vrittibhi na dushyate anu bhavastar maina kuhkam yatha. This apparent humility is simply a show of mercy. Such behavior of the Supreme Lord and his personal associates, which the Lord affects by his own bewildering potency, does not spoil his power any more than a magician's powers are diminished by his exhibition of tricks. So this apparent humility, of course it's not apparent, it's a real humility, but the Lord also shows it. It's a show of his mercy, actually. Srishtavedam manasa vishvam atmano pravishya yaha gunah urvad bhirabhati kartev swapna drigyatha tasmai namo bhagavate tirgunaya gunatmane kevalyaya dvitiyaya guruve brahma murte. I offer my obeisances to that Supreme Personality of Godhead who has created this entire universe simply by his desire and then entered into it as a supersoul. By making the modes of nature act, he seems to be the direct creator of this world, just as a dreamer seems to be acting within his dream. He is the owner and ultimate controller of the three modes of nature, yet he remains alone and pure without an equal. He is the supreme spiritual master of all, the original personal form of the absolute truth. The Supreme Lord releases his material potencies, and by the interaction, creation takes place. The Lord remains aloof as a supreme transcendental entity. Still, because the entire creation unfolds according to his design and will, his controlling hand is perceived within all things. People thus imagine that God is a direct builder of this world, although he remains aloof, creating through the manipulation of his multifarious potencies. So by his desire only, this whole universe comes into being, but he enters into it as a super soul and then everything starts working. But and he's the owner, ultimate controller of the three modes of nature, yet remains pure and alone, unaffected by these three modes. Kam vrinenu param bhuman varam tvad var darshanat yad darshanat purna kama satya kama puman bhavet. Of all pervading Lord, since I have received the benediction of seeing you, what other benediction can I ask for? Simply by seeing you, a person fulfills all his desires, can achieve anything imaginable. Varamekam vrinayathapi purnat kama abhivarshanat bhagvati achyutam bhaktim tatpareshu tathatvai. But I do request one benediction from you, who are full of all perfection and able to shower down the fulfillment of all desires. I ask to have unfailing devotion for the Supreme Personality of Godhead and for his dedicated devotees, especially you. So now he's not asking for that, I want to see the effects of Maya. He had seen it enough. The words Tatpareshu Tathatvai clearly indicate that Lord Shiva is a devotee of the Supreme Lord, not the Supreme Lord himself. Because a representative of God is offered the same protocol as God himself, Markandeya Rishi addressed Lord Shiva as Lord in previous verses, but now it is clearly revealed that, as stated throughout Vedic literature, Lord Shiva is an eternal servant of God and not God himself. Desire manifests itself within the mind and heart according to the subtle laws governing consciousness. Pure desire to engage in the loving service of the Lord brings one to the most exalted platform of consciousness, and such a perfect understanding of life is available only by the special mercy of the Lord's devotees. So this is what ultimately Markandeya Rishi wanted, to engage in devotional service. Sutuvacha iti archito abhishtutascha munina suktaya gira tamaham bhagavan charvaya chavinanditaha. Sut Goswami said, thus worshipped and glorified by the eloquent statements of the sage Markandeya, Lord Sharva or Shiva, encouraged by his consort, replied to him as follows. Kamo maharsya sarvoayam bhaktim astvam adhokshaje akalpantad yashah punyam ajar amarata tatha. O great sage, because you are devoted to Lord Adhokshaja, all your desires will be fulfilled. Until the very end of this creation cycle, you will enjoy pious fame and freedom from old age and death. Until the very end of this creation cycle. So in the shloka it says kalpa antat, means up to the end of the day of Brahma. So because it was mentioned, this pastime happened during this Vavasvat Manu's time period, which is 7th Manu. So up to the end of the 14th Manu. So 7th Manu, this is almost like noon time for Brahmaji. So until the evening of Brahmaji, he will live. And if we recall that pastime of Hiranyakashipu, so he performed tapasya for 100 celestial years. So that was like 36,000 human years. And he wanted to be immortal. Brahmaji said, no, I cannot be immortal, so he cannot be. So he asked for different benedictions. I don't die here, I don't die there, I don't die by this person, that person, whatever, all the benedictions you remember. And after doing that tapasya, only because he had this demoniac mentality to control. And then he committed offenses against pure Mahabhagavat, Prahlad Maharaj, his own son. So he ruled for what, 5 years, because Prahlad Maharaj was 5 years old only. Lord Nrsimhadev came and he killed Hiranyakashipu. And here it is said, O great sage, because you are devoted to Lord Adhokshaja, all your desires will be fulfilled. Until the very end of this creation cycle, you will enjoy pious fame and freedom from old age and death. And why? Because he is devotee of Lord Krishna. He has no demonic tendencies and he will not commit offenses. He'll enjoy pious fame and freedom. He can perform as much meditation, as much tapasya he wants. No old age, no death. See, that's the difference between what demons can achieve and what devotees can achieve. Further, Lord Shiva is saying, Jnanam trekalikam Brahman, Vijnanam ja vyaktimat, Brahm varchasvino bhuyat, Puranacharya tastute. O Brahman, may you have perfect knowledge of past, present, and future, along with transcendental realization of the Supreme, enriched by renunciation. You have the brilliance of an ideal Brahman, and thus may you achieve the post of spiritual master of the Puranas. So this is what he became, spiritual master of the Puranas. Shrutuvacha. Evam varan samune dattva gatriyaksh ishvaraha devya tatkarma katyanna anubhutam puramuna. Sud Goswami said, having thus granted Markandeya Rishi's benedictions, Lord Shiva went on his way, continuing to describe the goddess Devi, describe to goddess Devi the accomplishments of the sage and the direct exhibition of the Lord's illusory power that he had experienced. Swapivapta Mahayoga Mahima Bhargavottamaha Vichirati Adhuna Piyadha Harav Ekantatam Gataha. Markandeya Rishi, the best of the descendants of Bhrigu, is glorious because of his achievement of perfection in mystic yoga. So perfection in mystic yoga is to concentrate on the Supreme and to achieve. This is the yoga. Yoga means to link his consciousness with the Supreme Lord. Even today, he travels about this world, fully absorbed in unalloyed devotion for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Anuvarni tamete tamettate Markandeyasya dhimata anubhutam bhagavato maya vaibhavam adbhutam. I have thus narrated to you the activities of the highly intelligent sage Markandeya, especially how he experienced the amazing power of the Supreme Lord's illusory energy. Etat kechid vidvansu maya samsritir atmana anadiyavartitam nrinam kada chitkam prachakshate. Although this event was unique and unprecedented, some unintelligent persons compare it to the cycle of illusory material existence the Supreme Lord has created for the conditioned souls. An endless cycle that has been continuing since time immemorial. But it's not the same. Markandeya is being drawn into the Lord's body by his inhalation and expelled again by his exhalation should not be considered a symbolic description of the perennial cycles of material creation and annihilation. This portion of the Srimad Bhagavatam describes a real historical event experienced by a great devotee of the Lord, and those trying to relegate this story to mere symbolic allegory are here declared to be unintelligent fools. So Bhagavatam itself says that. Ya evam edad bhrigu varnitam rathang paner anubhav bhavitam sanshrayayet sanshruyadu tavupo tayorna karmashaya samsritir bhaveta. O best of the Bhrigus, this account concerning Markandeya Rishi conveys the transcendental potency of the Supreme Lord. Anyone who properly narrates or hears it will never again undergo material existence, which is based on the desire to perform fruitive activities. So this is wonderful Shrutifal again. He will never again undergo material existence just by hearing it. So anyone who properly narrates it or hears it, that's all. That's all we need to do. Just hear Bhagavatam again and again with faith. And just no more material birth. And here, although in translation it says, conveys the transcendental potency of the Supreme Lord, but his name that is mentioned here is Rathangapane. The Lord Hari, who carries a chariot wheel in his hand. Because we all know in the war of Mahabharata, he carried the chariot wheel to kill Bhishma Dev, or he tried to kill Bhishma Dev. He wasn't going to kill him, but he picked up so Arjun could fight properly. But that scene has been, I mean, so many times Krishna has been called Rathangapani, or Chakrapani. His name is also Chakrapani. And that pastime is so important to protect his devotee Arjun, to protect the words of his another devotee, Bhishma Deva. Bhishma Deva had said, if you don't pick up a weapon, I'll kill Arjun today. To pick up, to please both his devotees, he broke his own promise that I'll not pick up a weapon in the war of Mahabharata. This is Krishna. He loves his devotees so much. So all we have to do is try to become his devotee. Very nice, very surrendered, loving devotee. That's all we have to do. And here it is said, anyone who narrates or hears it will never undergo material existence. That's the story of Markandeya Rishi. So thus ends the purpose to 12th canto, 10th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Lord Shiva and Uma Glorify Markandeya Rishi. So we can start the next chapter, chapter 11, summary description of the Mahapurusha. Shri Shonak Uvacha, Athemam Artham Prichamo, Bhavantam Bahuvittamam, Samasta Tantra Radhante, Bhavan Bhagavat Tattvavit. Shri Shonak said, O Suta, you're the best of learned men and a great devotee of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, we now inquire from you about the definitive conclusion of all Tantra scriptures. Okay. Tantrika Paricharyayam Kevalasya Shriya Pate Ango Panga Yudha Kalpam Kalpayanti Yatha Chaya Tanno Varne Bhadram Te Kriya Yogam Bhuvutsatam Yen Kriyane Punena Martyo Yaya the Martitam. All good fortune to you. Please explain to us who are very eager to learn the process of Kriya Yoga, practiced through regulated worship of the Transcendental Lord, the husband of the goddess of fortune. Please also explain how the Lord's devotees conceive of his limbs, associates, weapons, and ornaments in terms of particular material representations. By expertly worshipping the Supreme Lord, a mortal can attain immortality. Sutvacha Namaskritya Gurun Vakshe Vibhutir Vaishnavirapi Yaha Prokta Veda Tantrabhyam Acharya Padmajadibhi. Sut Goswami said, offering obeisances to my spiritual masters, I shall repeat to you the description of the opulences of Lord Vishnu given in the Vedas and Tantras by great authorities, beginning from lotus-born Brahma. So now Tantra, this Tantra doesn't mean the black Tantra or black magic people perform. This is Satya Tantra. Maya Dhyarnav Abhistatve Savikarmayo Virata Nirmito Drishyate Yatra Sachitke Bhuvantrayam. The universal form, Virat, of the personality of Godhead includes the 9 basic elements of creation, starting with the unmanifest nature and their subsequent transformations. Once this universal form is instilled with consciousness, the 3 planetary systems become visible within it. So the 9 basic elements of creation are Prakriti, Sutra, Mahatattva, false ego, and the 5 subtle perceptions. The transformations of the 11 senses and the 5 gross material elements. So many times this creation is described in Bhagavatam. So we went through all this. Etadve Paurusham Rupam Bhu Pado Dyo Shiro Nabha Nabi Surya Akshini Nase Vayu Karno Disha Prabhu Prajapati Prajananam Apano mrityu rishitu tadvahavo lokpala vanaschandro bhravo yamaha lajjottaro adharo lobho danto danta jyotsna smayo brahma romani bhurha bhumno ega purushmurtaja. This is the representation of the Supreme Lord as a universal person, in which the earth is his feet, the sky his navel, the sun his eyes, the wind his nostrils, the demigod of creation his genitals, death his anus, and the moon his mind. The heavenly planets are his head, the directions his ears, and the demigods protecting the various planets his many arms. The god of death is his eyebrows, shame his lower lip, greed his upper lip, delusion his smile, and moonshine his teeth. While the trees are the almighty Purusha's bodily hairs, and the clouds the hair on the head. So various aspects of material creation, such as the earth, the sun, and the trees are sustained by various limbs of the universal body of the Lord. Thus, they are considered non-different from him, as described in this verse, which is meant for meditation. Of course, we also have to understand universal form, as mentioned earlier in second canto. It's an imaginary form. Krishna is not. His form is not this. Earth is his feet. And this is imaginary form in the sense that everything is in his body. Everything belongs to him. And actually we should be very careful in using and utilizing anything for ourselves. Everything should be used in his service. Everything belongs to him. That should be the right mode. And especially when we see anything, and trees are the almighty Purusha's bodily hairs, and like it was mentioned, mountains are his bones. So we should not see anything separately from the Lord. Yavanayam Vyapurusho Yavatya Samstaya Mita Tavan Savapai Mahapurusho Lok Samstaya. Just as one can determine the dimensions of an ordinary person of this world by measuring his various limbs, one can determine the dimensions of the Mahapurusha by measuring the arrangements of the planetary systems within his universal form. Kostu bhavya padeshchena swatma jyotir vibhartyaja tat prabhavyapini sakshat Shri Vatsas Mursa Vibhu. Upon his chest, the almighty unborn personality of Godhead bears a Kaustubh gem, which represents the pure spirit soul, along with Srivatsa mark, which is a direct manifestation of this gem's expansive effulgence. Swamayam vanamalakyam nana gunamayam dadat vasa chandomayam pitam brahmasutram trivatsvaram Bibharti Sankhyam Yogam Cha Devo Makar Kundale Molim Padam Parameshtayam Sarva Loka Bhayankaram. His flower garland is his material energy, comprising various combinations of the modes of nature. His yellow garment is a Vedic meters, and his sacred thread is a syllable Om composed of 3 sounds. In the form of his 2 shark-shaped earrings, the Lord carries the processes of Sankhya and Yoga, and his crown, bestowing fearlessness on the inhabitants of all the worlds, is the supreme position of Brahmaloka. Avyakritam anantakhyam asanam yadidishtita dharma jnana debhir yuktam sattvam padmam ihochyate. Ananda, the Lord's sitting place, is an unmanifest phase of material nature, and the Lord's lotus throne is a mode of goodness, endowed with religion and knowledge. Oja saho balayutam mukhya tattvam gadam dadat apam tattvam daivaram tejas tattvam sudarshanam nabho nibham nabhas tattvam asim charma tamomayam kalarupam dhanu shargam tatha karma maye shuddhim. The club of the Lord carries a chief element, prana, incorporating the potencies of sensory, mental, and physical strength. His excellent conch shell is the element water. His Sudarshan disk, the element fire, and his sword, pure as the sky, the element ether. His shield embodies the mode of ignorance, his bow named Sharg, time, and his arrow-filled quiver, the working sensory organs. Indriyani charanahur akutirasya syandanam tan matrani asya bhivyaktim mudriyartha kriyatmatam. His arrows are said to be the senses, and his chariot is the active, forceful mind. His external appearance is the subtle objects of perception, and the gestures of his hands are the essence of all purposeful activity. So all activity is ultimately aimed at the supreme perfection of life, and this perfection is awarded by the merciful hands of the Lord. The gestures of the Lord removes all fears from the heart of devotee and elevate him to the Lord's own association in the spiritual sky. Mandalam Dev Yajanam Diksha Sanskaratmana Paricharya Bhagavat Atmanodurik Takshaya. The sun globe is the place where the Supreme Lord is worshipped. Spiritual initiation is a means of purification for the spirit soul, and rendering devotion service to the personality of Godhead is a process for eradicating all one's sinful reactions. So one should meditate on the fiery sun globe as a place where God is worshipped. Lord Krishna is a reservoir of all effulgence, and thus it is fitting that he be properly worshipped on the glowing sun. So the sun globe is a place where the Supreme Lord is worshipped. Bhagwan Bhag Shabdartham Leela Kamalam Udbahan Dharmam Yashasya Bhagwan Chamar Vyajaneya Bhajat. Playfully carrying a lotus which represents the various opulences designated by the word Bhaga, the Supreme Lord accepts service from a pair of charmer fans, which are religion and fame. Atpatram tu Vaikuntham Dvija Dhama Kutu Abhayam Trivrad Veda Suparnakhyo Yagyam Vahati Purusham. O Brahmins, the Lord's umbrella is a spiritual abode, Vaikuntha, where there is no fear, and Garuda, who carries the Lord of sacrifice, is a threefold Veda. It's also said when Lord goes somewhere on Garurji's back, the movement of the wings of Garurji, it produces all the Vedic sounds. And the Lord hears those Vedic sounds while flying on Garurji. Anpayini Bhagavati Shre Ihe Sakshadat Manohare Vishwakshenas Tantra Murtir Vidita Parshadadipa Nandadayo Ashto Dvasa Sthascha Teani Madhya Hare Raguna. The goddess of fortune, Shri, who never leaves the Lord's side, appears with him in this world as a representation of his internal potency. Vishwaksena, the chief among his personal associates, is known to be the personification of the Pancharatra and other tantras, and the Lord's 8 doorkeepers, headed by Nanda, are his mystic perfections, beginning with Anima. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, the goddess of fortune is the original source of all material opulence. Material nature is directly controlled by the Lord's inferior energy, Mahamaya, whereas the goddess of fortune is his internal superior energy. Still, the opulence of the Lord's inferior nature has its source in the supreme spiritual opulence of the goddess of fortune. So, Mahamaya comes from Lakshmi Ji. And Lakshmi Ji, of course, other places mentioned expansion of Srimati Radharani. In the Vishnu Puran, like it is, thus in the same way that the Lord of the universe, the God of gods, Janardhan, descends to this world, so his consort, the goddess of fortune, does also. The pure spiritual status of the goddess of fortune is described in Skanda Purana as The inferior, infallible entity is that nature who manifests as a material world. The goddess of fortune, on the other hand, is known as a superior nature. His pure consciousness is under the direct shelter of Lord Vishnu, while she is said to be the superior, infallible entity. That infallible entity who is greater than the greatest is Lord Hari himself, the original possessor of all transcendental qualities. Vasudeva Sankarshna Pradimna Purusha Swayam Aniruddhiti Brahman Murti Vyuho Avidhiyate. Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha are the names of the direct personal expansions of the Supreme Godhead of Brahman, Shonak. Savishwas Tajasa Pragyas Turiya iti vrittibhi arthendriya yashaya jnaner Bhagwan paribhavyate. One can conceive of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in terms of awakened consciousness, sleep, and deep sleep, which function respectively through external objects, the mind and the material intelligence, and also in terms of the fourth transcendental level of consciousness, which is characterized by pure knowledge. Angopanga Yudhakalper Bhagwan Tat Chatushtayam Vibharti Sma Chaturmurtir Bhagwan Haririshwaraha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Hari, thus appears in four personal expansions, each exhibiting major limbs, minor limbs, weapons, and ornaments. Through these distinct features, the Lord maintains the four phases of existence. Dvijrishabhasa Eish Brahma Yoni Swayam Drik Swamahim Paripurno Mayaya Chasvayat Srajati Harti Patityakhyan Vritaksho Vivrit iv niruktas tatparera atma labhyaha. O best of the Brahmans, he alone is a self-luminous, original source of the Vedas, perfect and complete in his own glory. By his material energy, he creates, destroys, and maintains this entire universe. Because he is a performer of various material functions, he is sometimes described as materially divided, yet he always remains transcendently situated in pure knowledge. So those who are dedicated to him in devotion can realize him to be their true soul. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur recommends that we become humble by practicing the following meditation. The earth which is always visible to me is the expansion of the lotus feet of my Lord, who is always to be meditated upon. All moving and non-moving living beings have taken shelter of the earth and are thus sheltered at the lotus feet of my Lord. For this reason, I should respect every living being and not envy anyone. In fact, all living entities constitute the costly gem on my Lord's chest. Therefore, I should never envy or deride any living entity. By practicing this meditation, one can achieve success in life. Wow. Amazing way of meditation. And here we think every devotee, it's my competitor. And Vishwanath Chakravarti says, every living entity we should not envy or deride or put him down in any way. Every living entity. Sri Krishna Krishna Sakha Vrishni Uch Bhava Nidhug Rajanya Vansh Dahanana Pavarga Virya Govinda Gopa Vanita Vraja Bhratya Gita Tirtha Shrava Shravana Mangala Pahi Bhratyana. O Krishna, friend of Arjuna, chief among the descendants of Vrishni, you are the destroyer of those political parties that are disturbing elements on this earth. Your prowess never deteriorates. You are the proprietor of the transcendental abode, and your most sacred glories, which are sung by Vrindavan's cowherd men and women and their servants, bestow all auspiciousness just by being heard. O Lord, please protect your devotees. Yaidam kalyothaya mahapurush lakshanam tachitta prayato japtva brahma veda guhashayam. Anyone who rises early in the morning and with a purified mind fixed upon the Mahapurusha quietly chants this description of his characteristics will realize him as a supreme absolute truth residing within the heart. Shri Shonak Uvacha, Shuko Yadah Bhagavan Vishnu Rataya Shrunote, Soro Ganon, Masi Masi, Nana Vasati Saptakaha, Tesham Namani Karmani, Niyukta Nam Adishvara, Bruhi Nah Shraddhananam, Vyuham Suryatmanu Hare. Shri Shonak said, please describe to us who have great faith in your words the different sets of 7 personal features and associates the sun god exhibits during each month, along with their names and activities. The associates of the sun god who serve their Lord are personal expansions of the Supreme Personality of God at Hari in his feature as the presiding deity of the sun. So after hearing an account of the exalted conversation between Sukadeva Goswami and Maharaj Pariksit, Shonak now inquires about the sun as the expansion of the Supreme Lord. Although the sun is a king of all the planets, Shonak is specifically interested in the effulgent globe as the expansion of Shri Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The personalities related with the sun are of 7 categories. In the course of the sun's orbit, there are 12 months, and in each month, a different sun god and a different set of his 6 associates preside. In each of the 12 months, beginning from Vaishak, there are 12 different names for the sun god himself: the sage, the yaksha, the gandharva, the apsara, the rakshas, and the naga, making a total of 7 categories. Of course, this is all must be mentioned in different astronomical books. Sutuvacha, Anadya Vidyaya Vishnu Ratmana Sarvadehinam Nirmito Lok Tantroyam Lokeshu Parivartate. Sud Goswami said, the sun travels among all the planets and thus regulates their movements. It has been created by Lord Vishnu, the supreme soul of all embodied beings, through his beginningless material energy. Eka evihi lokanam surya atmadit kridhari sarva ved kriya moolam rishibhir bahutotita. The sun god being non-different from Lord Hari, is the one soul of all the worlds and the original creator. He is the source of all the ritualistic activities prescribed in the Vedas and has been given many names by the Vedic sages. Kalo desha kriya karta karanam karyam agamam dravayam phalamiti brahman navadhokto ajaya hari. Being the source of the material energy, the personality of Godhead, Lord Hari in his expansion as the sun god, is described in 9 aspects, or Shonak: the time, the place, the endeavor, the performer, the instrument, the specific ritual, the scripture, the paraphernalia of worship, and the result to be achieved. So, different description of Lord as a sun, as his expansion as a sun god. So now there are hardly any purports. I'll just go to the translation. Just want to complete this chapter today. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, manifesting his potency of time as a sun god, travels about in each of the 12 months, beginning with Madhu, to regulate planetary motion within the universe. Traveling with the sun god in each of the 12 months is a different set of 6 associates. My dear sage, Dhata is a sun god, Kritasthali is as a Apsara, Heti as a Rakshas, Vasuki as a Naga, Rathakrit as a Yaksha, Plastriya as a sage, and Tumburu as a Gandharva rule the month of Madhu. Aryama is a sun god, Pulaha is a sage, Athoja is a Yaksha, Praheti is a Rakshas, Punjakasthali as a Apsara, Narad as a Gandharva, and Kachanira as a Naga rule the month of Madhava. Mitra is a sun god, Atri as a sage, Poroshe as a Rakshas, Takshak as a Nag, Menaka as a Apsara, Haha as a Gandharva, and Rathaswan as a Yaksha rule the month of Shukra. Vashishta as a sage, Varuna as a sun god, Rambha as a Apsara, Sahajanya as a Rakshas, Suhu as a Gandharva, Shukra as a Nag, and Chitrashwan as a Yaksha ruled the month of Tuchi. Indra as a sun god, Vishwasu as Gandharva, Shrota as a Yaksha, Ilapatra as a Naga, Angira as a sage, Pramalocha as Apsara, and Varya as a Rakshas ruled the month of Nabhas. Vivaswan as a sun god, Ugrasen as a Gandharva, Vyaghra as a Rakshas, Asarana as a Yaksha, Bhrigu as a sage, Anumlocha as Apsara, and Shankapal as a Nag ruled the month of Nabhasya. Usha as a sun god, Dhananjaya as a Nag, Vata as a Rakshas, Shushen as a Gandharva, Suruchi as a Yaksha, Gritachi as Apsara, and Gautam as a sage ruled the month of Tapas. Ritu as a Yaksha, Vracha as a Rakshas, Bharadvaj as a sage, Parjanya as a sun god, Senajit as Apsara, Vishwa as a Gandharva, and Aravat as a Nag ruled the month known as Tapasya. Anshu as a sun god, Kashyap as a sage, Sarkasya as a Yaksha, Ritasen as a Gandharva, Urvashi as Apsara, Vidyuchatru as a Rakshas, and Mahashankha as a Nag ruled the month of Sahas. Bhagya as a sun god, Purja as a Rakshas, Arishtanemi as Gandharva, Urna as a Yaksha, Ayur as a sage, Karkotak as a Nag, and Purvachitti as Asura ruled the month of Pushya. Toshta as a sun god, Jamadagni as the son of Ritika, as a sage, Kambalashwa as a Nag, Tilottama as Apsara, Brahmapeta as a Aksha, Satrajit as a Yaksha, Dhritarashtra as a Gandharva maintained the month of Isha. And Vishnu as a sun god, Ashvatara as a Nag, Rambha as Apsara, Surya Varcha as Gandharva, Satyajit as a Yaksha, Vishwamitra as a sage, and Makhapeta as a Rakshas ruled the month of Urja. So this is just description of different personalities. All these personalities are the opulent expansions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, in the form of Sun God. These deities take away all the sinful reactions of those who remember them each day at dawn and sunset. Thus, throughout the 12 months, the Lord of the Sun travels in all directions with the 6 types of associates, disseminating among the inhabitants of this universe purity of consciousness for both this life and the next. While the sages glorify the Sun God with the hymns of Sam, Rig, and Yajur Vedas, which reveal his identity, the Gandharvas also sing his praises, and the Apsaras dance before his chariot. The Nagas arrange the chariot ropes, and the Yakshas harness the horses to the chariot, while the powerful Rakshasas push from behind. Okay, so they all have different services. Facing the chariot, 60,000 Brahman sages known as Valkilyas travel in front and offer prayers to the Almighty Sun God with Vedic mantras. For the protection of all the worlds, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, who is unborn and without beginning or end, thus expands himself during each day of Brahma into these specific categories of his personal representations. So thus ends the purpose to 12th canto, 11th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Summary Description of the Mahapurusha. So we'll stop here. If anybody has any questions or comments.
So it seems that we have to relook at these, redo this Bhagavatam because ये सब कुछ पता है और फिर भी ध्यान नहीं आ रहा, ऐसा लग रहा है दोबारा से शुरू करनी पड़ेगी.
अभी तो read when we study Chaitanya Charitamrita, उसमें जो description दिया है, so much of it is there. It's amazing. It's not just the stories, pastimes of Mahaprabhu. Those are there also. But in his teachings to Sanatana Goswami, to Rupa Goswami, oh, so much of descriptions are there. It's amazing. This whole universe, it's just amazing what it is.
Though we already studied the Surya wala, jo hai that
Right.
abhi na in the detail, but seems to be that दोबारा से इसके साथ वो खोलो and then you study, then you can relate.
Yep. Yeah.
So much of detail, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thanks a lot.
Thank you,
Hare
Mata. Chalo, you all have a safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai
Thank you,
Shri Ram.
Prabhuji. Yeah.